Hello and welcome to this episode of Navigating the Waters, where we're again joined by our fabulous host and CEO and founder of River VC, Stephanie Mckinney. Stephanie, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm really good, thank you. And really looking forward to today's episode because I know that we're going to be talking about one of the things that probably keeps us all the most awake at night, the dreaded pitch deck. How do you actually take your idea and turn it into a story that makes sense to somebody who hasn't been living it the same way you've been living it for the first time. So I'm really excited to hear your observations and thoughts on how we can better structure these.
Yeah, I heard a lot of feedback from Navigating the Waters, all of our episodes, and people are like, you need to dive more into it. I understand that it has to be a story and you have to tell your projections, but we really want to break down the examples and the slides that we want to see. And from a VC, it was easy for me to go back into my email and into my documents and see many different slides, many different pitch decks, and what they all had in common. And a lot of the commonalities that they had was it's a story. Your first impression has to be a good story, like a trailer in a video, in a movie. If you want to watch it, you're going to get that teaser, that clip, and then you're going to be like, yeah, I want to keep watching and I want to go pay 15 plus at the movies or, other sources. So that pitch deck really has to be your best foot forward in your company. And with that, it has to convince them that you're going to make money with their money. And you're also trying to get it under 10 minutes. Unfortunately, with COVID, it's been so quick. It's no longer they travel to meet you, you go on a lunch, and then you talk about it. It's a 4 minute to 15-minute interview where you're selling your company, yourself, your soul, and you're trying to get them to say yes, but it has to have at least the attention span that they have. And a lot of the times as a VC, I like to tell them, you know, the first 15 minutes or the first 5 minutes are going to be the commodities, like how are you doing? How's your family? And then you have maybe 10 minutes to go over your slides and I'll give you 15 minutes for Q&A. So it's nice that we can formulate that structure and understand and respect other people's time. But the baseline is it's your first impression and it has to be short, and that can be scary when there's so many different sources out there that are telling you you need an advisor, you don't need an advisor slide, you need this to go first, and how do you represent your company when everyone else is having input. So I hope that through this episode we really dive into what you need, what other people want to see, what are the trends that people have spent on their pitch deck.
I love that. It reminds me of I can never remember whose quote it is when I say it reminds me of, but I wrote you a long letter because I didn't have time to write you a short letter. Your pitch deck really is the short letter, isn't it? It's how you condense down everything that you were thinking to make it impactful for the person. And loved the analogy of that movie trailer. You're trying to take that 2-hour movie and get the exciting parts into that 4-minute trailer that's going to get you desperate to go to the movies.
Yeah, and a lot of the times the trailer does too much details, and some people's pitch deck do too much details when it's just an email pitch deck or just a meeting pitch deck. You really need to make sure that you're not diving into too much technology or too much financials. You're really trying to get a couple questions, a couple answers resolved out of your pitch deck, and we'll go over that here shortly.
I love that. So there are so many different stages, aren't there? You've already talked about those. You've kind of got that introductory piece. You've got to pique somebody's interest. So maybe the 4 or 5 page one, all the way through to the I'm interested, I want to really dig in and understand a little bit more, which is probably more your 15 to 20 page one. Would you recommend that people have a one that they can then say, well, these slides would be the ones that I would use for the 4-minute pitch, and I can reuse them in the later pitches? Or would you have them all as unique on their own?
I think it would be unique on their own. I think you need to have a pitch deck for your demo days, for you presenting to a syndicate or a VC where you're going to be doing it a lot, but you don't want to give out too much of your financials because you don't know if they're accredited or not. So have a pitch deck one, Have an email one, which is kind of like your trailer, where you're enticing them, where they're going to probably take. I spend at least 4 to 5 minutes on a cold email pitch deck. I'm like, okay, this makes sense, but it has more of the I'm not being navigated through it. I'm not being narrated, so I can understand it on my own without having someone with me. So it has a little bit more substance, a little bit more, and then your meeting one is more you talking to them with some slides in the background. So I would say it should be, at least in the beginning, when you're really getting through everything, you're really trying to understand who you're going to talk to and who you're targeting, at least three, and then kind of come up with a hybrid of one, of like an email version with more details and more understanding.
Okay. That makes total sense. So what do you think are the key things that people need to consider when they're starting to pull those decks together?
I think you really need to understand the opportunity that you have discovered, and then what you're going to do, what you're going to build to fix it, your team, how you're going to do it, and your customer demographic that we talked a lot about, making sure you understand who they are, and then how much are you growing and why you. A lot of the time it's why are you going to make it? Why are you and your team going to succeed? Why can't I just give this other information to Apple and have them do it? Why is it going to be you? So those are the 5 kind of goals that you should get out of your pitch deck.
Okay, which makes total sense. So you're really trying to take them on that journey, aren't you? Of what is it that you're doing? Why is it important? Who's it important to? What's it costing them now? So what's the problem that you're solving, or the desire that you're meeting? And then why are you the people? Why are you the team that are going to be the ones that bring it? What's your unique gift that you're bringing to the solution that gives them confidence that you're the right team to invest in?
Exactly. It's like a movie. I keep going back to it because you go through the character building, and then you go through the problem, and then you go through the climax, and then at the end of it you're hooked. You really love that movie. You want to watch it again. You think about it, you quote it all the time. My family and I, we like to quote movies back and forth, like popular ones. So it's really telling that storyline. Here we are. This is the problem. This is why we're going to solve it. Here's our team. Here's the product. Here's the market size that we're going to do. Are you going to join us with? Are you going to join this momentum, this revolution, and changing how we do it, how it's been done?
I love that. So it's a great way of getting people to really understand what that is that we're looking to do. So when they're getting started and they're thinking about, we've got to be able to describe what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, when I'm doing it, what it looks like. Are there any tips that you can give us on what people like it to look like? Because that's one of the challenges that I get leveled at me all the time, which is if I'm only allowed a few slides, you can't go in font size 6 that nobody can see. You've got to be able to kind of make it readable and have the right points. But are there any tips around the style that you could share with us?
I think the pitch decks that have stuck in my brain over listening to hundreds of pitch decks are the ones that take you through a pretend customer. Like, Sally has this problem. She can't find any, let's say, chargers around the world. How can she get a charger in X, Y, and Z? And you're seeing yeah, that is a problem. And I also face that problem. So I sympathize and empathize with Sally, our pretend customer. So I like when people take you through a person, an everyday person. This is why they need this product. This is how we're going to help them. Also, a short video, not too long, a short video, because you don't want to take too much of the time, and it's 4 to 5 minutes that you have. So a short video to showcase your company, showcase your product, your team, and then being able to have that represented. I've also seen examples like slides, or if it's an app, having an app up there with how it's going to look, the UX, the UI, how we're going to have that description. I really want to see the product and the why behind it. So I think going through that.
So you can almost, like you said, you empathize. You can look at the customer that they're talking about, and you can go, I've been there. Or I know someone that's been there. So it might not be me that's been there, but I know someone that's been there. I recognize the problem. And then being able to see what the experience is going to be, to say, well, actually, does that look like the kind of experience that either I would like to have if it was me, or I would like whoever it was to have had if they were going through it.
Exactly. It's a problem that you didn't know was a big problem. Like the everyday, like, let's go back to Uber. Taxis were doing fine. They were doing what they needed to do until you needed to get somewhere else, or you needed to do this. So they found a problem that you didn't even know was a problem. So I think, yeah, being able to find that, capitalize that, and then take them through the journey. Not just like, here are our financials, here's how the technology works, and this is it. It's finding the problem. Why are you guys the solution? What your capability is in this field, and why are you guys going to be successful?
I love that. So is it important as well, when we're thinking about, we've identified a problem, that we clarify that actually it genuinely is a problem and get them on that journey? So it's not just, I think this is a real problem, and like, that's great, Kim, but that's just you. I often use the analogy of Homer's car, when he was given the opportunity to build that car and he managed to build it so the only person in the world that would want it was Homer. It's making sure that the problem you're solving genuinely is a problem, and the way that you're solving it will appeal to the many, not the few.
Exactly. And that's why we talked about it in another episode. Your customer is important. Talking to your customer. They're like, oh, they're your source. You're doing it for them. You're doing it for money, but you're doing it to solve their problem. And if their problem doesn't align with what your product is solving, then you need to pivot. You need to make sure that your customer is going to like your product and represent your product and talk about your product and sell it to other people. So if you don't know your customer, then that's not the best way to go about it. I think it's build a product for the customer, not build the product and fit the customer in it.
I love that. It's so true. In fact, I remember I wrote a blog on it a couple of years ago, which is, who are you changing for? Because one of the biggest challenges I see going into organizations is they're usually changing or they're adapting because of something that they don't like, that doesn't work for them, rather than going, yeah, but what about the customer? Because actually the customer couldn't really care if it's clunky and uncomfortable for you. They just care if they're getting what it is that they want solved in a way. So you've got to really start to think about, how do you take them on the journey they want to go on, rather than how do you create a journey that works for you, but actually they're not going to opt into.
Exactly. That is something that has trended in a lot of successful businesses, is building that customer demographic and making sure that the product is built for the customer. Like a phone, it used to be on the wall, and now that's inconvenient to the customer, so now we have it in our pocket.
Yeah,
make millions, billions of dollars in that. So building that product for your customer and knowing your customer is key, and is going to help you sell your product.
I love that. And thinking about the evolution of that, to take your example of the phone, it used to be on the wall. But do you remember when it used to be like the smallest one that you could get was the one that you wanted? The one that like literally fit in the palm of your hand. So now nobody would want that, would they? Because actually, I can't read my emails on it and I can't do all of the apps. So actually, it started off being stuck on the wall. It ended up being tiny, and now it's got to be multifaceted and able to deal with the evolving technology and what we want to stay connected with. So I think there's a really important piece about that ongoing review, isn't it, of your customers? What are they evolving to do? What's happening in the market? And how are you going to demonstrate to the investor that you've got an eye on the future as much as you've got an eye on the present?
Exactly. Knowing and changing and adapting to the customer is going to help keep your business successful. Because like you said, it went from on the wall to tiny on your, and then you also had like an iPod or a Nano, and then now it's like, let's just combine them all, make it a little bit bigger, and give them access to the world. So knowing your customer, adapting to your customer, continuing to receive feedback, and not just, well, no, this is how it's supposed to be, like actually hearing and understanding and then changing it how you need to.
I love that. And is it important to kind of demonstrate that you've done that research. So, within that pitch deck, explaining here's who my customers are, and here's how I know that. Here's who I've been and spoken to, whether that's forums, whether it's user cases, whether it's chatting amongst friends that are in the right demographic. Whatever it is it useful to share? This is how I've validated my view that this is a problem. This is the solution, and these are the customer types that are going to believe in that based on the feedback that I've got.
Exactly. Yes, I do believe that showing that in your meeting pitch deck is going to help the investor say, yes, okay, she knows or he knows what I'm doing, what they're doing with their money, and what they're going to do with our money. So, because they've done their research, they've found out who they're doing. They're not just like, oh, we're just going to cast a wide net and hope that we get all the crabs. We're going to make sure that we specifically target this family of crab. Like, that's what they're going to do.
Fab. So it really is about, I guess, taking a good friend of mine used to always say, find the biggest problem and then you tell them what the simplest solution is. So here's the big problem, and here's the really small solution that we're going to do, so that they go, I'm bought into that because that's massive and that looks really doable. So actually that I can believe and conceive could happen. Now what you want me to do is believe and conceive that you could make that happen. But you kind of, I guess, with each slide, you're trying to move them along the journey to say yes. Would that be fair?
Yes, exactly. You start with your cover slide in a brief description of what you do. It should be self-explanatory what you do. It's not like your mantra or your logo. It's a brief description of your company that is understandable and can be universally understood. And then you do the problem. You do your business opportunity that you have. This is why this is going to happen. And then here's how we're going to solve it. You're going to have your solution. This is not diving into your tech. This is not diving into the nitty gritty of everything. This is how we're going to solve it. And then you go from that to the product. And in the product, you can do, like I said, you could take us through a made up character. You could take us through a quick video. You could have slides of the app on your product. And then you do the features. You do how it's going to be short, it's going to save you time, it's going to save you money, and then the benefits of it. This is why it's going to be helpful. This is why you're going to want to keep using it. And then you go to your why now slide on why is this a problem now? Why are you solving this now? What have you seen that other people haven't seen? And then how are you going to make money? Your revenue model. And I think that one is, it should be shorter than a lot of people think. It should be, are you subscription based? Yes. Okay. How much are you on your average? Are you going to charge? Are you going to have a free trial? Okay. You're going to charge $10 a month. Sounds good. And then, or if it's something, a product, how much are you going to do a transaction fee? What is it? It should be a simple picture of your revenue and maybe various options that you have, but nothing too in depth, not like connecting the dots. Like, this is how we're going to make money from the customer. This is how we're going to make money using ads. It should be pretty simple, pretty basic and understandable. And then after that, I've seen that your milestones and your roadmap really follows your revenue slide. Like, this is what we're going to do. These are how we're going to build the product. Here is our history and our evolution. Here's what we're looking to do. And then from that, break it down into your transaction, your traction, your monthly breakdown. How much are you getting through that revenue model? What can you expand? And then how are you going to go to the market? So you're really flowing into not just like, here's a team, here's the product, here's the problem, here's the solution. It's really flowing from product to solution to why, to the benefits, to how you're going to get it in the market, to then what are you going to do when you're in the market. It's a really good flow and structure that I have written down because I've seen it in a lot of successful pitch decks. And then after you do your go to market, in there you need to answer like, how did you get here? How are you sustaining yourself? And what are you going to do to grow? What are you going to do to do the next thing, to do your next fund, to do your next MVP, to do your next goal? And then after that, making sure that you have your market size, kind of showing the investor, this is where it is. This is the market that we're tapping into. This is why we're going to do our total addressable market. It's going to be a self-assessment of your company in its space. So you're gonna, it's a lot, and I can write it all down in our next blog, so it's easily tracked, and you can see, okay, this is why Stephanie thinks that it flows better this way, because I've seen a lot, and I've seen a lot of people jump around from slide to slide, but the ones that stick with me are the ones that have the cohesive story, that cohesive trailer where you get snippets and you get, a lot of information, and you generally know what the movie's going to be about, but now you really want to look at it. And this is the part where you really want to look at, your competitors next, see what they're doing, see why you're going to do it better, why you are unique, why your team's unique, how are you guys going to be successful, and then say, and here's our team. This is why. Some people want advisor slides, some people don't. I think if your advisor may be like well known, it might be beneficial to be put in there. Then go into financials. Then show your projections and your breakdown, and then show them why you're raising this money. If you are raising the money for, obviously we talked about it, your next round, you have to keep sustaining yourself to the next round. It shouldn't just be to buy a product or to buy this or to do that. It should be sustainability throughout the next round, but show them what specifically you're going to do. Are you going to do are you trying to go to, do some social media? Specifically, are you going to do Facebook ads? Are you going to do something that we would see, that they can see? Like if they follow your company page, like, oh, there goes my money right there into the marketing strategy. So taking on a pitch deck is hard, and knowing the flow is harder, but it's more about getting your story out there and getting your product out there in a way that is universally understandable. Because I've gone in pitch decks where they have a good slide and they have a good tech and they have this, but I don't know what they're trying to do with it because they didn't explain the problem. And I sit there and I'm like, I don't want to be rude because I don't interrupt during a pitch deck. I let them finish, and then I write down my questions, and then I ask them the questions. But during the middle of it, I'm still a little lost unless it flows in a cohesive manner. And you show me the problem, you show me the solution, you show me the product, and then you bring me to your traction, your market, your why you kind of phase, your competitors, and then your team. So I think having that flow, and there are templates out there that, like Sequoia has a lot of templates, Slidebeam has a lot of templates where you're able to get help, to have understanding, and navigating the waters is here, where you can ask your questions on why not have a X, Y, and Z slide, why have this slide, where should this go, should the team go in the front. It's also very hard, and if you're not out there showing people like your family and friends we talked about, showing your trusted advisors, if you're not getting feedback, you think what you have is perfect, and then you go to an investor and they're like, I don't know what product you're building.
Yeah, it's that, I guess, taking it out of your head and sharing it with people so that you go, well, hold on, these 7 people understood it, but what if I take it to these 7 people? Do they still understand it? Or is there, I fall foul of this all of the time because I do podcasts globally, and I forget that some of the terms that are in my head aren't global terms. So I said to a client the other day, well, the problem is you need some MI, and they were like, what on earth's MI? And I was like, management information, like you need to know your financials and your operating pieces. And they were like, oh, right. But they had no idea what MI was. Or over here in the UK, we would have a managing director. So we call them your MD. But, if that was in America, that's your doctor. Right. So I'm saying, well, you get an MD. And they're like, well, hold on, why am I getting an MD and what's happened to me? So I think it is, isn't it? It's that sharing those parts out so that people can help you understand where you've used a term that isn't universally understood, that doesn't make sense, that causes confusion, because a confused brain doesn't buy. It's not going to say yes because it's like, well, I don't know what you're trying to get me to say yes to. I don't understand it. So gaining that clarity, and I guess testing that clarity is crucial.
It is, and you're making sure that in an email pitch, it's understandable when you're not being there, when you're not understanding. It's like a teacher giving a substitute handouts. If it's something that she can explain to the group or he can explain to the group, then that's good. But if it's something that's out of their wheelhouse, they're not going to explain it well, and they're not going to tell their friends about it, and they're not going to be excited to tell their friends about it to come invest in it. So it has to be universally understandable. And having that storyline, we all love books, we all love movies or TV shows where we can just sit and take us through a journey of something else. And I think if that is what your pitch deck follows, then people are more inclined to follow up with the meeting, to get another meeting, to ask questions, to put themselves out there and broadcast you and promote you. But if it's something that I don't understand, I'm like, thank you for 30-minute meeting. I'll get back to you with questions, but I have to go back over the slide deck because I still don't understand what it means, or do my own research. And that shouldn't be the case. The slide deck, the pitch deck should be self-explanatory.
I love that. We could chat on this, I know, for hours. I love that in the next blog, we're going to be sharing some of those templates and breaking it down, helping people see what that flow looks like. You've explained it so beautifully today. But I think, for those of us like me that like to see it as well as hear it, that blog is going to be amazing. And I know that we'll delve into more detail on these in coming sessions as well, won't we?
Absolutely. I would love to get any feedback from the listeners. If they want to come on and show their pitch deck, that would be great and wonderful. But we do follow up with a blog almost every episode on LinkedIn and on the website. So if you guys ever want to see it in tangible writing and something that you can hold rather than listen to, I know we got a lot of feedback on the blogs. So please tune into the blogs, subscribe to the Navigating the Waters podcast, because we are going to keep going through and we're going to take you through pitch decks. We just did an episode on Kim's pitch deck. We're going to do another episode and 2 other people's pitch deck for the first cohort of founders. And we're going to keep diving into it and explaining it and making sure that it's understandable for other people.
I love that. And you've also got an amazing newsletter as well, haven't you, where you kind of round all of that up for people. So all the episodes and all the blogs in the month are in that one place. So I've subscribed. It's brilliant. I love it. So I would highly recommend other people subscribe as well, because I find it's just so easy to then see it's flowing as that journey. It's helping me bring that story to life.
Yeah, and if there's something specific, we always have a blog and an episode. So on the newsletter, dive into that and then go into the other resources, because I do want to make sure that the people of Navigating the Waters are educated and informed and stay connected.
I love it. Stephanie, it's been a joy as always. Looking forward to next time and continuing to help people navigate the waters to get their investment.
Thank you. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, everyone.